Welcome back. Welcome back. It's the most anticipated time of the year for your most favorite show right here on Trust the Profits. It is Doubling Down. I'm your host, Colin Sheehan, alongside now. I'm going to start calling you the co-host, Vinny, because you're so kind to just come on every week. And this was the original duo. So you're my co-host, Vinny Blonde. Vinny, we made it through Derby week, and I get to do a little humble brag about having Spirit of St. Louis right into Sovereignty. We were both big on Sovereignty, but glad to put up the standings. You're okay, don't worry. It's only $1.90, but
Yeah.
with the double, we
Yep.
jump up to 39 on myself. What'd you think of the Derby?
Yeah. The Derby played out like I thought it would. That was great. The Derby was great for me. The race before, not so much. I had a little too much Frank and Frankie Dettori, and I'm I'm not I'm done sing. If I ever single him again, just put in the comments that I'm an idiot because I'm done with it. It was a
I'll
terrible.
hold you to that.
He gave the horse zero chance to win. So that was frustrating.
Hey, you took an opinion, as we preach on this channel. Have an opinion, stick with it, and if so, what you're wrong. You had Sovereignty. We both like
Yep.
Sovereignty. I know it stinks not to go home cashing the ticket, but I appreciate the we're not gonna be wishy washy with a bunch of different opinions when you knew you were going to be spreading in the Derby. But ultimately, Vinny, you should have done the opposite: is trusted
Yep.
our Derby opinion and spread in the race before.
Yep, that's I'm just saying to you. Like we had been saying all prep season, it's sovereignty, it's sovereignty, it's sovereignty, and then decided to spread because he was a closer in the Derby. And I mean, they were midway through the turn in the rate. Like you saw him coming in the rate. Like you saw him coming midway through the turn, and when they straightened out for home, the race was over. Like it didn't matter what journalism did at that point, and he wasn't holding him off. Like I knew he was home. I knew he was home 15 seconds before he crossed the wire. So just one of those like looking back, probably should have just stuck with it, but it still was a successful day. So I can't beat myself up too bad over it.
You hit the ice cold super in the Derby, a story you'll have for the rest of your life. So I don't want to hear about
Yep,
missing the
never do
double.
that again. I'll never do it again, but we'll see.
Well, let's see. Maybe we can parlay it into some luck here this week for the Preakness second leg of the Triple Crown. No Sovereignty. We are going to start off with our daily double, as we always do, with the dinner party, going a mile and an eighth on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. Blicknikov was your winner last year in 2024, who comes back to try and repeat with Crabs and Beer, came in second last year at a price, is back in the field as well, a field of 13. It's a grade 3. I would say the horses in here are grade 3 talent, aside from maybe one who I circled in on, the 13 Trakari, an Oscar Performance baby. I also, Vinny, thought the pace seemed to me like it was going to be slow. I didn't really kind of go through and couldn't necessarily think that there's a ton of horses here that would be burning it up on the front end. We use RaceLens here on Doubling Down, and RaceLens agreed with me. They give you a little pace projection. Their projection is that the pace projects to be a slow one. The advantage goes to the horses that will be close to the early pace. Did you agree with that? And did that come into factor with your handicapping?
Yeah, I didn't think there was a lot of pace in here. So the horses I picked, I just think are better horses in my opinion, and they've been running against better. So that's kind of where I went with my picks.
Who do you have on top?
I have Signator on top, and I know he's kind of the exception to the other ones that I'm using because I know a lot of these horses are coming out of Stakes Company, but since they switched him to the turf, he has looked much more comfortable. I always thought he was going to end up being a turf horse for Shug. He's the number 3. Um, I believe, yeah, he's the number 3 for Shug. He's 2 for 2 this year. I just think he looks good. Like he looks like this is a race that like Shug's kind of been running him into shape for, and I don't think there's anything sensational in here as to why he can't take a slight jump up in class. He was a horse that was briefly on the Derby trail when he was a 3-year-old, So he has run against some top horses before, just on the dirt. I Ever since Shug brought him back this year on the turf, I both those wins have been very good. He's beaten some stakes horses in those wins, even though the one was just a listed stake. I think he makes a ton of sense here, as long as he stays in the field. But he was a good he was a decent dirt horse. So and then they switch him over to the turf, and he's looked good. He's looked good so far. So he's my top pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say my problems with getting to Signator was I think I just put a little bit more emphasis on how the pace might play out, and you know what I always talk about when we get to these graded races is I kind of hone in on horses that have had success, and obviously your favorite I would assume is going to be number 13 Tricari, who has success both at grade 1 and grade 2. The only one in the field here. The last 3 races have left some to be desired. Came back this year at the Maker's Mark Mile, finishing third. But Vinny, I was surprised you didn't use this horse based upon what we talked about 2 weeks ago with Integration and that race with Carl Spackler. And, you know, Tricari was third in that race, just behind Integration. So I was using some of the handicapping that you had talked about 2 weeks prior, thinking that you
Yeah.
were going to be on this horse too. And then when you sent me your ticket, I said, "Oh, interesting. He's moved off." Um,
Yeah.
he's a
He's
favorite here. I think you get some nice prices. I'm gonna guess that's maybe why what you were thinking in putting your ticket together. But why'd you leave Tricari
Yeah,
out?
yeah, the last 3 haven't been fantastic, like you said, and, like, yes, he did take 3rd to Carl Spackler, but now he's stretching out, and, like, he didn't really he hasn't finished well this year. Like, his last few races, he just has not finished well, and now you're stretching him out. And it's just like, maybe it does it, but yeah, like you said, he should be the favorite. He's the horse to beat. I'm just hoping that he's, after that mile, he just gets a little shaky, or he's just, you know, his best days are behind him. I mean, he runs back to some of his older races. Obviously, he can win this without a doubt. But that was really my concern, is that I think the 1 mile distance is more what this horse wants to do, and the extra furlong might be a little too much for him.
Graham did say that he thought he ran this horse one time too many last year. So with that comment that I saw from him, has me thinking maybe you draw a line through that Bryan station. You know, you can do that right here on RaceLens. Cross that one out. Um, both because of
Yeah,
the performance, but maybe that just it was too many races for him at that point. So now he comes back, gets a 107 in a grade 1. This isn't a grade 1 race, Vinny. So that's why I think that even with the
yeah,
performance that comes back to the last one, sure, the distance is a concern, but I'm not going to leave him off. I think that would just be one. I can understand this being more open than wanting to take a favorite in here, and I did try not to go with too many. But I thought that he looked like he could be the deal in here. You used a few others on your ticket. Where'd you go?
I did. I used the number 9 Irish Aces for Walsh. Uh, This horse just shows up every time. He's
Yeah,
just one of those
consistent.
horses. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the pace is. This horse just shows up every time. Sometimes he wins. Even when he loses, though, he's in the picture. And that was more or less what I went on. Um, he's stretching out a little bit, but he won last time, so I do like that. And like the race he won, yes, he didn't win how he usually wins. He did go, he led from the front the whole way. I don't think he'll do that here, but he's got some good back class. He's run against some very solid horses. I think if he he can sit closer to the pace, so I think that like he's one that should be a little bit of a price, and it can totally make sense coming down the lane because this horse always finishes well. So I just thought he was a logical horse. I don't love the jockey carousel that goes on with him, and I'm guessing that's just because Tyler is still hurt.
Mhm.
He went from Curtis was on him last time. He's got Rispoli on him today. The jockey carousel's kind of blah, but I think he'll finish. He finishes well. I won't be shocked if he wins. I won't be shocked if he finishes fourth by a half a length. Like just one of those horses.
Yeah, I wrote down very similar notes. I'm going to use Irish Aces as one. This is actually the only horse that we agreed on. We kind of saw this race a lot of different ways, but my notes were basically that he's shown versatility by winning that last race out wire to wire. And I just talked about the lack of maybe some speed in here. So I wanted to have a horse that could go just like they did last time out. Horse is 10 for 15 in the money. I wrote down, is distance a concern? And I also wrote that when this horse isn't on Lasix, which he won't be this weekend, hasn't run to the best. So if you kind of circle in on those
Yeah.
Lasix races, he does have a race, Kentucky Downs, August 29th, where he was off Lasix and had a victory. But I don't know. I don't try not to look too much into that, but I do, just take a gander when I see it's
Oh,
off
definitely.
Lasix, and you know,
Yep. Yeah, it definitely. I mean, he's one of those horses that like sometimes he's one of those horses that like when he's a short price, he's easy to be against because he doesn't always win. He likes to finish in the money. But when
hmm.
he's a price, like if this morning line holds and he's 10-1, like I mean, even his thirds, he's like like his losses, his last couple losses, neck, 3/4 of a length, 3/4 of a length, half a length. Like he's right there. So, he gets a little racing luck in some of those races, and those are wins. So the fact that like we have a potential of getting double digit odds on him, like it just makes him as one of those horses that like it's like, yeah, you probably like I'm gonna use him this time. But yeah, if he for some reason is like 3-1, like I'm off. I agree with you. His races off Lasix aren't good enough to win, and at a short price, I just don't want him. I want him at these. I like him when he drifts up like this.
I used four deep in here, so I'll go next with my on top pick, which was actually the number one on the inside. I thought that this was a nice little sneaky horse in here at a price at 12-1. Last time out, I read a quote. D'Amato said it was time for this horse to shut up or put up. He's always on the cusp regarding the greatest stakes breakthrough, and it's time for him to show us if he's a greatest stakes horse or not, right? So he comes out and he also said, I put Ricky Gonzalez aboard to try and be more aggressive with this horse, okay? Because you can see the horse was not really being forwardly placed as much in some of the races prior. So they put him into
Yep.
this grade 3 race at Santa Anita. Ricky Gonzalez aboard. He does have him more forwardly placed, and he doesn't get there, right? He finishes second. Couple things have me interested in here. One, Easter was in that race in Gold Phoenix, two turf horses. I absolutely love that horse, Easter. I think he always comes through and runs a big race. So I would say that that's not a weak race that he ran in. And if last race was the time to put up or shut up, how come he's back now again in another graded 3 with a very aggressive Luis Saez aboard, which I absolutely love. To me, it's like, you know what? That wasn't actually that bad of an effort. Yes, he didn't get the victory, but I think he showed us that we want to give him another shot. Not only let's put him in here, let's ship him over to Pimlico. To me, this is a interesting spot, especially when D'Amato has the 6, which was last year's winner, Biliknikov, in here as well. It makes me wonder how what is this horse maybe sitting on a big race, and at 12-1, I'm definitely willing to take that shot. And when you use the true odds at RaceLens, this was another thing that had me. This is what first maybe got me on this little tangent of let's look into this horse. Uh, RaceLens will give you what it thinks the true odds are, and it highlights it in yellow if it's getting a good price. Look at this. The true odds in RaceLens are 4-1, morning line of 12-1. So that immediately jumped out to me. Then I see that the horse early is forwardly placed, and at the middle is still forwardly placed, and then is second on the win percentage at 20%. So when I start to see those angles, it makes me go back, and then that's when I Googled the horse. That's when I saw what D'Amato said about him, and that's when I read about Ricky Gonzalez, and then I noticed Saez is aboard. So it kind of all has me pointing towards maybe a horse that's going to get me a price in this double. So the one, I think it's Divine Propose,
Yep.
is where I'm going to go with on pronunciation. This might be one that I'll take a shot on.
That makes sense. My re I don't the price is nice. I don't like the cutbacks on turf. I am not one to usually play a cutback on turf.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and this horse has been running at 10 and 12. Like he's running a mile. He's used to running a mile and a half. So it's definitely a different, he's cutting back to 9. He's only run 9 once. Um I just think he might want longer. Could he be much better? Sure. But that's my reasoning for not using him. But I mean, at 12-1 though, like it's a great is D'Amato Saez at 12-1 is a very very tempting price for sure.
We'll take it. And then you also use 10 Fort Washington. Tell us why.
Yeah, I use the other Shug. This horse just seems to be coming into his own a little bit. Like you look at it, like you can almost draw a line through the Pegasus World Cup where he actually didn't run bad, but like he lost the Spirit of St. Louis in that race. He didn't have the best. He didn't have the best trip. He finishes fifth, but the two races before that, he runs second by a neck to Major Dude, who is another horse, another graded stakes winning turf horse at for mile and a 16th distance. And then he comes back and he beats him in the Canadian turf last time out. Like this horse is another one that he tries hard every race, and he can be a little more forwardly placed. Like I know like his last race, he was seventh. He was only 4 lengths back. If this pace is slow and this horse is only gonna sit like 2-3 lengths back, I just think he's very dangerous in here. And he just seems to be one that just keeps slowly improving. He's not doing any, he's not making big jumps, but like, the race 3 back, the 114, that's probably good enough to win this if he runs back to that. But even like the mid, the 104, 107s, like those are probably like that's going to make him competitive in here. So I thought at a decent price he was worth using.
Yeah, one I'm worried about. I left him off, and he was first off my ticket, so I can't blame you there. The last horse I used was Neat. 8-1, Joel Rosario's aboard. The reason I'm playing Neat is really because of what I watched in the replay of his last race, where this horse was just. It's one of the most brutal trips I've seen in the many. I don't watch. I try to watch replays, but I mean, when this says steadied often, this horse was steadied about three or four times.
It was a.
And then he even had almost put him horse on my in the ticket. Stretch, had horse in the stretch, and then was just blocked. So not only did he get steadied so many times, when he finally had some run in the stretch, there was no place for him to go, and he just didn't get to the spot in time. So, a little bit of a stretch, but at 8-1, you get Joel Rosario board right here on the front stretch. He's the number 4. Is where you'll see he goes down into the rail and then immediately gets steadied for the first time. And basically, I'll show you the first one because there's 3 more like that are all very similar. Yeah, where there,
it was, boom, yeah,
pulls him up. And then he gets him going again here, and he's got to do it again. It was a tough ride. So a little bit of a playback. It's nothing that other people aren't going to see, especially those that are watching replays. But a horse who I absolutely think maybe on the coming back from that is dangerous. I think we lost Vinny here, so I'll show you here how the stretch as Vinny tries to reconnect. Here he goes. What I was talking about with having the space in the stretch and the horse, and the 6 just beats him to it. Then he's squeezed with the 2, and after all the trouble that he had on this race, really just had some trouble. Vinny's back. There we go. And he finishes a solid 4th. So it's a playback on the trouble.
I almost used him. He was the last horse off. It was either singling in the Preakness or using him here. And I chose not to single in the Preakness, which sure will bite me. He was the last horse off my ticket. I 100% agree.
Speaking of the Preakness, 150th, field of 9, no sovereignty. It's bad news for the sport. I just hope that sovereignty doesn't just run a 3-year-old season and then end. Then at this point, I'm not mad he's running in the Preakness. I actually don't think it was probably a great spot for him. I went back, Vinny, and looked at winners in the Preakness for the last 20 years, have all basically been within 2 lengths almost throughout most of the races, but definitely at the half-mile mark. That's not a style for sovereignty. This would have been a race I'd actually played against sovereignty. So them keeping him out, not that I know any more than the Hall of Famer Bill Mott. I absolutely do not. Not as crazy for me. I understand where the passion for the sport and not having him in the Triple Crown is not good. I just hope that what they talked about and wanting to give him a break, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. I hope that means he comes back and runs again at 4, and we get a nice long career from sovereignty is my ideal for the half glass full looking at the Preakness.
Yeah. I think the goal at this point with Sovereignty is to make sure he is in good enough shape that they can run him in the Dubai World Cup next year with the connections. I think that's
Yeah,
what Godolphin is thinking. So I don't know how many more times we will see him this year. I'm going to guess we get the Belmont. He probably skips the Jim Dandy and runs in the Travers. And then we probably get like the Pennsylvania Derby into the Classic, if
Yep.
I had to guess. It's something along those lines. And then we will probably see him go from the Classic to maybe he'll get one prep, if that. Probably not. He'll probably go from the Classic to Saudi to Dubai. Is if I had to guess, and depending on how he does in Dubai, that's probably it. So I do think we see him at 4. I just think it's the connections. Just they don't need the glory. They're already one of the top outlets there are in the sport. So they just want to win. They want to win their prize races. So I get it.
Yeah, when
like
you have
you said,
when you have a weekend like they did,
yeah, and like you said, like this was 100% a bet against spot for him.
yeah.
Like he's big closers like that just do not love Pimlico.
So I'll ask you, I mean, next up, I think we sort of agree that there's a tier A of sovereignty journalism in Baeza. At least that's kind of my tier A, the SEC, if you will, if you're comparing it to a college football division. And we get journalism back. We don't get Baeza back. You didn't single. I didn't single either, but that's because of a little like side thing I got going on the channel with the other guys, and I'll get into that and why I had to include another horse in here. But I really feel like this is a spot where journalism is just much better than these horses. I don't think the 2-week comeback is going to be a problem. He's at the peak of his performance going into the Derby. He ran like I think we expected him to. He had a fairly clean trip. You know, running in the slop. I saw him galloping on the track today. To me, he's just the best. And singling him here, you know, probably makes a ton of sense. And he's my winner for the Preakness. Are you in agreement, or you think it's somewhere else?
Nope, 100% in agreement with you. He just, he got run. In my opinion, he just got run down by a better horse. Like that was it.
A little bit better. Ran
a little bit. I mean, yeah, not even that much better. Like he got. Like I do think he is more versatile than Sovereignty is. So I think even though like he came from like mid pack, he doesn't need to, and he's already shown that, especially in a smaller field. I would expect him to maybe be 3.5 lengths off this pace. I don't think you're going to see him as far back as he was in the Derby. I think he's going to be very. Yeah, he was 7. Yeah, he was 7 lengths back at one point in the Derby. You're not. I don't unless whoever's out front goes on a suicidal pace. I think that realistically, like what he'd done the last 2 races, where he's 3.5 lengths off, that's where he's going to be. And if he gets in that spot and he's just clear, like the race is probably over. Like we'll.
Here's something. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like if he's inheriting the lead, turning for home, nobody's coming from the back of the pack in this field to catch him.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to show is with RaceLens, you can pull up GPS data. I'm trying to get a handle of how to use it, but here's journalism in the Kentucky Derby. And I looked at all the other horses in this race, and Vinny, if you look at average stride length, it gives you points of call of the race and what their average stride length is. The fact that he ran the Derby and his stride length is 26, 25, 25, 25, and then 24 is quite amazing when you start going through and looking at some of the other horses where you can kind of tell where they're clearly getting tired, especially at the longer distances. Here's your number 6 River Times, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. To me, that signifies that stride's just getting shorter because the race is getting longer and they're starting to get tired. So for me to see journalism go 26, 25, 25, 25, 24, the consistency in that over 1.25 miles is just kind of amazing. It's just another point of data that we can look at in this sport that we love because of all the data we can go through. And I thought that was kind of cool to see. Like I was trying to find like, okay, what could be the possibility of maybe him not getting there, and I didn't have one. You did decide to use another horse in here. He seems like he's the
I did.
little hot pick from a lot of people. I'm hearing this name a lot. It's your number 8, Clever Again.
Yeah. I was really hoping this horse was going to run in the Pat Day Mile. I think a bunch of us were. As you know, he just seems like he is that type of horse. Like he's a fast little horse, and I think a mile and against graded stakes horses he can win. I think this is a big test to stretch him out for the Preakness. But I also think if he's ever going to do it, is kind of my feeling on national. It was my same feeling as for National Treasure stretching out. If he was ever going to get a grade 1 stretching going over a mile, this is the spot because there's not a lot of like super speed in here, in my opinion. I know like goal oriented had like the I honestly don't think he's that quick goal oriented. So I really think that there's a good chance that he is on the lead. Like this horse is on the pace or is the pace setter. So I'm fully expecting him to have a legit shot at least being on the pace and finishing strong. But at the end of the day, if 2 of these horses hook up and journalism sits third, the race is over, in my opinion. Nobody's putting another speed horse away in this field and kicking home.
Pointing out that RaceLens has your 8 at the second on win percentage at 17.5%. It's actually closer than I would think with journalism at 23%. Does show goal oriented being on the front. I think goal oriented. The reason I like goal oriented, I didn't use him in here with the double, but I do like the horse. He's probably one in my exacta. I'm thinking like journalism over goal oriented because I'm more impressed with that race on Derby Day. We'll pull up the PPs here because I want to show you the Equibase speed figure he got. 109 on that same card on the undercard. And I had been talking in our chat about no horses really won on the rail on Derby Day. And I guess you could go back and look at when the rain came and when the rail was. But I just remember in my head, wow, look at all the horses coming down the stretch that are in the middle of the track that are picking up ground as opposed to ones on the rail. And it was kind of my theory that that's why Citizen Bull darted off to the right, was to get to the middle of the track going down that stretch the first time, as opposed to, maybe trying to take out his competition, as maybe others have suggested, which, we'll never know. But I'll stick to the rail was not the place to be that day. And that's why I think Goal Oriented looked like he was slowing down in the stretch, coming down the rail, and maybe looked like he was getting caught. I think it was maybe a little bit better. Now, obviously, allowance optional claimer up to the rail, the grade 1 Preakness is a huge step up. But we know the trainer, Mr. Baffert, who's won this race 8 times with a speed horse on the inside. The thing I'm concerned about those horses on the outside is if the speed on the inside is going to force those horses wide. That causes me some concern in wanting to play a horse like Gosker or Clever Again, or I'm not really concerned about Sandman. River Times is the other big one that people are on. But that's the concerns I have, because I think the other horse I used on my ticket is the number 3 American Promise. I know you feel the same way as Tim. Tim told me I'm crazy. I'm convinced that this is the little horse he's not little, he's the big horse that has the possibility to he's really fast. I use that GPS data to show you journalism. American Promise is 42 miles an hour at the quarter, 41.5 miles an hour at the quarter. It's one of the fastest mile per hours on the Derby Trail this year. As I've looked through the races, the problem with American Promise is he's so big, he needs to get into stride, he needs to stay into stride. And you talked about it being the Virginia Derby only being 1 turn. Maybe that was why he looked so good in that race. But, he packed it in the Derby because once he got thrown off stride, he doesn't have a shot, right? But let's say he gets out there and gets clear, like Seize the Gray last year for Mr. Lucas. I think there's more to American Promise that we haven't seen yet. And I'm putting him on my ticket kind of just to tee off Tim and have him look at it and watch the show. And he's going to message me because he watches all the shows tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that it was strictly there for you, Tim. This would be a journalism straight ticket if A, I didn't think there was a possibility that American Promise could do that. B, American Promise is 15-1. He's probably going to be higher in my estimation based on some of the money that Sandman and journalism is going to take. And why not, right? It's $8, so we'll
Yeah,
toss him.
yeah. If there wasn't the good chance of rain, I probably just single journalism here and move on. To be honest with you, the wet track is like the one hesitation is why I even bothered using Clever again, because I think he's going to be able to get a good trip in the slop, and I think his pedigree is very good for the slop. So that was kind of my logic. But yeah, if for some reason if it's some reason it turns out to be like a fast fair track, like I probably change this ticket and I just single journalism and call it a day. I really don't. Unless he really takes a big step backwards, I just think somebody's gonna have to run their career best to even compete with his like last 3 average in reality. And that was my big issue with goal oriented, where like he won okay. The horse that came in second, his only other good effort was in the slop, and he just hung on. And like I know Equibase had him running a little bit better. Bayer didn't really have him running that well, and everything else I looked at, he didn't really improve, and it's a huge jump up. I would have been all over Rodriguez if Rodriguez had entered here. So unfortunate that he's not running here. He's one that I hope we see back. I don't think we will, but hopefully we see him back. He's still in training, so we'll never know. But yeah, that's just we'll see. One of those speed horses gets out by themselves, obviously they're a threat. But I think the last year with Seize the Gray, I think was a lot more cut and dry being on the front end than this year's pace scenario looks.
There you have it. I'm going to go 14913 with the 2-3. It'll cost you $8. Vinny's going to go 3910 with the 2-8. My ticket, obviously, pay attention to those probables because 13-2 is not going to pay much. So you might want to put like $4 on that one in order to make back at least what you're betting on the ticket overall. Vinny, thanks again so much. Good luck on sorry they cut you out there. Sorry. Good luck on Preakness Day, and we'll be in touch. And until next time, I'm Colin. He's Vinny. Good luck, everybody.